Well, good evening. I'm sorry. I'm trying to get away from doing that. Hello, ladies. Hello, everyone. Because I never know when you're going to be looking at it. So I'm trying to get away from saying good morning or good evening. But it's a beautiful day here in Oklahoma for Miss
Hmm.
Miriam and I. And
Yes.
we are here on fourth week discipleship, Shalom in the home.
Hmm.
And it's the month of September.
Yes.
And Miss Miriam is going to talk to us about Shalom in the home. Then we're going to be talking about Hebrews 13, verse 2 today.
Yes. Yes. Hopefully everybody, welcome everybody. Hope you've had a good, if you are on the Hebraic Hillel calendar, we've just gone through and we're the Yom Teruah, Rosh Hashanah, and hopefully you've had an incredible time. I know, Jen, I saw pictures of what you were doing. It looked wonderful. And we're in the 10 days of awe. And so anyway, and as we start, we are so grateful to be here and to be at this time. Like they say, the Shekiano blessing that as God has brought us to this season. And so this time that we're going to talk, I was thinking, what is something that would be really applicable to all of us? And so if you can look in your scriptures to Hebrews 13:2, but we'll start at 13:1. It says, let love of the brethren continue. Do not neglect to show hospitality to strangers. For by this some have entertained angels without knowing it. So a lot of times we take this and we can go in many directions. Sometimes when we were in the beginning of our walk, sometimes we just saw angels as those flapping wings, didn't we? Or we didn't understand that the Hebrew word from messenger for angel is messenger. And so we could also read it, some have entertained messengers without knowing it. Um, could be a little different, could not be a little different. But to have shalom in the home, we talked about last time about so many things in that come into our threshold, into our home, and that we can really set the mood, but others can change the mood. Now, we are to entertain people and be hospitable because you were once a stranger, it says in Egypt. And so we are to have a love for others. Now, right now, there is a terrible hurricane in Florida, or we have seen things where people have gone through terrible tornadoes, and people are brought in the home, maybe people that you have known. But what about the people that you don't know? Let's talk about that, because that can sometimes be a blessing, or sometimes it can be a curse in that it doesn't go so well. So what do we have to have? We have to have discernment of when to do it and when not to do it. That's not always easy. For example, in my home, we took in many people. Sometimes it was very successful. Other times it wasn't. My husband had such a great gift of mercy. And I would have to kind of balance it out a little bit. And so people would be hurting. People would need jobs. And so we would let people come into our home. We already had 6 children in the home. And sometimes my mother lived with us for a while. So there was 9 of us right then. Well, after a little while, these people started causing complaints and saying things to my children, and then saying things to my husband and I that we weren't raising our children right, it was not a good thing. And so when do you step back and say, you know what? This isn't really working out. Is this shalom in the home? Am I creating more difficulty with my children by entertaining these people? Sometimes it's really, really difficult, isn't it? Because on your threshold, when people are coming past that threshold, you don't know what they're bringing into your household. And most of the people that you're bringing in your household are in a devastating state, aren't they? Some need jobs, some have dysfunctions, some have abuses, some have drug problems, some have financial problems, because if not, they wouldn't want to be coming into your home in most cases. And I'm not saying for an overnight stay. I'm saying this is usually when you're taking them in for a little while. Now, I would suggest before you ever do this, that you pray, pray, pray. And also, if you are married, that you would first discuss this with your husband and that you would come to an agreement together. Communication is the most important thing. So if one says, oh, I want to do this, I want to bring this into my home, and the other person said, you know, I don't feel good about this. Now, sometimes you have to take a little break and say, well, I'm going to think about this overnight. I'm going to think about, because, you know, when we already have our household, bringing anybody into our household, and even if you have it just for a few days, it's going to disrupt your normal routine. And if you are people who are keeping Shabbat, if you are keeping the holy days, if you are eating certain things, then when somebody comes into your home, they're going to have to abide by the rules of your home. The same as we say, God has rules, doesn't he? And he wants us to follow those. So these people might not be familiar with that at all. And so you're going to have to set the boundaries. So, like in my household, and this was really amazing, I had 2 Israeli girls come to live with us for a whole year. And at that time, they really weren't observing the Shabbat. And so I would have to say, nope, you cannot do the laundry on Shabbat. You can't do that. You can't do certain things on this day. So that would least bring some peace into your home because you're setting the rules and the boundaries. Now, if they're coming in and they're bringing in unclean food into your home, you set the boundaries. Because if you don't, then there's going to be problems. One of the hardest things that I saw and difficult was people taking advantage. Because let's face it, people that you're bringing into the home, many times, like we said, there is problems there. And are you ready to be able to sit down with them in love and talk to them? And many times we saw a great change in people. You could be their avenue for freedom, their avenue to make changes and be able to talk to them why you do this, why this is so important. Now, many times we had guests that were speakers that would come to our congregation and speak. One of the greatest things you can do is give them space because everybody wants to talk to the speaker. Do you have the understanding and the compassion to say, you know, you've been up late. I'm going to give you, go to bed. Do you need water? Do you need anything? But kind of shield them from people trying to keep them up for all hours, or want to talk to them, or can I come over and I want to just talk to these people. You've got to be the buffer for them. And many times these are people, and people would think, wow, I'm having this person come sing. Like one time we had Jonathan Sattel in the house and he was singing in the shower. And we're going, wow, he was like, vocalizing and getting his throat all ready. And, it was incredible. We've had so many people come into our home, but are you ready to also shield them from the people that can maybe want too much attention? But is your household in a position to handle this? Do you see it as someone that's a messenger that might be bringing you a message also and a blessing? Or are you going to be the one that's the teacher? For our household, when people stayed for us like a week, all of a sudden we would know them so well, and they'd be talking, can we discuss this? Can we discuss? Because leaders are the loneliest people. A lot of times they don't have anybody to talk to. So you might be the one that's going to be giving them the advice, exactly what they need. Because if there's no accidents in this world, then maybe they are supposed to be in your household. So what kind of a household are you creating? Is it one of great comfort? Many times they're watching you, aren't they? And you can say one thing, but are you living that out? When it says to let love, well, sometimes we have tough love and we have to say, no, you can't stay here anymore. Could be one of our children. You can't do this in my home anymore. It might be a love that I love you so much that I'm going to help you for this time. But also know it is so much better to teach somebody than to just give them things. And so have this discernment, pray for discernment. It's very easy to love the lovable. We know that. How much more is it to love somebody that you might bring in your home that maybe doesn't smell so well? I remember picking up somebody from the bus station and came to stay with us a few days. And oh wow, my husband and I, it was just terrible. We could hardly be in the same room. So and this person had problems. And so we picked him up, but we had to say, you need to take a shower. Sometimes things aren't so easy, but you are the guardian of your home. On Shabbat, we say what? That you are the queen and he is the king. So people are more watching about what you do than what you say. Everybody is our teacher. Some show us what to do, some show us what not to do. Crystal, are you on right now listening?
I
Do you have
am. I
something to
am.
say? Would you like to contribute something?
Well, I tell you, um, there's just so much that you just said right there that is just so powerful. Because that is just we are the keepers of our home. You covered so much territory as far as like, being the guardians of our home. You covered inviting people into our home, being hospitable to people in our home. You covered like what I was hearing was, what happens if you bring in a homeless person? What
Right.
happens when you bring in a teacher? I know
Mhm.
at one time in our life, we had foreign exchange students in our home.
Mm,
And um the foreign exchange students had to live according to our rules. And those rules were a little bit different than the culture that they were from in Spain
Right.
or in China. So it was different, and we had to set those boundaries, and we are the keepers of our home, and we're the gatekeepers. And
Right.
our threshold is our gates,
Yes.
right? I mean, what happens when we let the wrong people past our gate? What happens to our children?
Mhm.
You know? We're the ones that's supposed to watch that. We're the ones that's supposed to take care of making sure that the fragrance of our home represents that of the Messiah and is not tainted with the fragrance of the world.
Mhm.
And
Right.
it's hard. You have to make that choice.
Mhm.
You and Charles always was in unity when you let people come in your home, were you not?
Yes, yes, except we then felt, I remember somebody was in the midst of a divorce and he was a carpenter. And my husband had originally been an electrician and he had no means of transportation at all. So we had a station wagon at that time. And so we decided, okay, my husband said, I'm going to have him be able to use um, our car. At that time, that was before SUVs, I think, station wagon. And, and, uh, and how can a man work and do this job if he doesn't have a car to go? And so the only thing is, we probably didn't give him enough boundaries. So he maybe had the car maybe 6 or 8 months. And of course, we had paid the insurance, we had paid the tag, and all of a sudden we get um, a call from a towing place that the car was in some place it shouldn't be. And so it gets brought back to our house and the car is just totally a wreck inside. I mean, everything is all the seats, everything, because he used it like, for a work truck, but it wasn't just a little dirt, torn up mess, everything. And I had to go share a car, and I did not have a vehicle because that was my vehicle that we gave
Yeah.
up. Was I a little upset? Oh, yeah. Yeah, a little upset. So it's not always. So we talked about this, and he realized this is, he maybe didn't do a good thing. So, like I said, when you're bringing in certain people who aren't speakers, or like you said, I know many people who have brought in students, and a lot of times they could be from China, or they could be from an area where they like to eat things that you don't like to eat, that we don't eat at all. And so you have to say, well, if you want to go out to a restaurant, but in this household, or they're not used to doing the Shabbat.
Yeah.
And all you can do is invite them and pray that they will see the beauty and the beauty of you getting along. But I know that was a difficult time for my husband and myself. And he said, you know what? I hurt our family by doing that. So we thought we were really doing a good thing. But if you're going to do this, you have to set time. You just think somebody's going to just do it just right. But
You
the
have to weigh the
person,
cost, right?
right, that's a really good, you got to weigh the cost.
You have to weigh the cost because I've always told my children, no mine, all Yeshua. I used to say, no mine, all Jesus. When,
Mm-hmm.
no
Mm-hmm.
mine, all Yeshua. Everything belongs to him anyway, and we should be free to give. And we still, as you know, Miriam, are
Mm-hmm.
very generous in allowing
Right.
people to use stuff. But you do have to weigh the cost when you let people in the home. You have to weigh the cost of what is it going to change in the dynamics, and
Right.
is it going to alter the peace of the home? Because
Right.
isn't that what we're talking about here?
Yeah.
Shalom in the home.
Shalom in the home.
Shalom in the home. And I don't know, but having another child can change the dynamics of the home.
Yes.
Having having guests in your home can change the dynamics of the home. And you know, change happens when you add in what do we say at Havdalah? That everybody is a spice,
Right.
right?
Right.
And sometimes when you mix the wrong spices together, you don't get a really good flavor.
Right. You can almost even sometimes have an explosion.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. Try
Well,
mixing bleach and ammonia and see what you get,
I was
right?
just thinking that, I remember teaching school and making a volcano with the kids and putting that, oh, whoops,
Oh,
they love that. They love that.
what
But
a beautiful analogy, though.
yeah, but
I mean, picture
but
that analogy in your
you go,
home, and you
yes,
have this volcano, and your
yeah,
house is the walls of the volcano, and you have, baking soda in there or vinegar in
yes,
there, and you're gonna bring in and pour in the baking soda.
right.
It's gonna be an explosion.
Even to the extent you brought for Shabbat, I'm look and see many times who I am inviting for Shabbat
Mhm.
because maybe certain spices won't mix, like you said.
Yeah, that's true.
Some personalities might not mix at all.
Yeah,
And so these are things that they're going to set a different mood in your household, or you're going to have to steer. I'm into a direction. Sometimes when we would be eating and I would be inviting people that may be very new to this, and they would start getting in a subject that was totally, we did not want to go there. So they're going to try and change that. And you're saying, so you just can't say, hold it there. Okay, stop. So you've got to have that ability. So you've got to know when to have certain people and when not to have certain
yeah,
people. And so now there's other cases where they say that you might have been entertaining angels. When somebody is needing, if they are in need of something and you need to give them tzedakah, you need to give them this charity, you have to do it that never embarrasses them,
yeah.
right?
Hmm.
So you
Yeah,
have to be really careful when you bring these people into your home, or what are you going to maybe you're going to be sitting down with them and you are going to free them in an area they've never been experienced and had before. Many times they haven't had that mother or father or a blessing. How many times have people been in our homes
mhm.
or in the congregation said, I've never been blessed by my parents. I've only been put down.
I'm guilty of that. I'm guilty of that. I had never experienced a blessing being spoken over me until Charles spoke it over me.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, and I'm sorry, but he gave me the freedom that I needed
Mm-hmm.
to continue to move forward in this walk. He blessed me. Yes, people when we invite people into our homes, we never know what impact we're going to have with them.
Mm-mm.
But at the same time, we need to be cautious of what impact they're going to have on us.
Right.
And are we strong enough to stand our ground and secure our borders and solidify our boundaries? And you were talking about sometimes we entertain angels without knowing it. And I have a little story if I have the freedom here.
Sure.
So I was a very young person in Germany at the time. I didn't know the Lord. I didn't know anything about, walking in his ways. And there was a gentleman by the name of Brian. I don't even remember his last name. And he had a family and he had a child who had a heart condition or whatever. I never met his family because they stayed back in the States and I was in Germany. But I would go out and sometimes get drunk because I didn't know any better. But he always made sure that I made it home safe. He always made sure that I was put behind my door and my door was locked and that I was taken care of. Years later, I tried to find that person, and there
Mm.
is no record of him anywhere in the military records.
Mm.
I know that there's just no record. There's no way I can find him. He can't be found. And I really believe that he was an angel that took
Angel.
care of me.
Mm-hmm.
And we never know when that's happening.
No, no. And usually also, um, it is for our benefit. When I was saying about somebody that was in need, also, the test is more for us who have than for the person who doesn't. Or, they say today, if the Messiah would walk into most congregations the way he was
Mhm.
dressed, people wouldn't even talk to him, or they would think he was homeless.
Yeah.
It's very sad how we judge. And but that's so beautiful. I know one time in our congregation we had two men walk in on a Wednesday night, and we were in great financial difficulty, and we never passed the plate, and it was in a very poor area. And these two men walked in, and my husband said they were men in suits, because that area, I mean, it was very poverty. And we were in a little strip mall at the time. And after they left, and at that time, my father-in-law, and about a few, oh, I don't know, a great number of people said, there wasn't a lot coming at that time. We were just starting, but this is getting a little too Jewish for us. So they walked out and left us 30 folding chairs and $1,750 in debt. Well, guess what? There was a check in the box for $1,750. My husband never had said a word.
Mm.
These men were not men that would normally come into that neighborhood. They had to be angels. So
Yeah.
sometimes we're thinking, we just don't know. We just don't know. And maybe that person that's down and out is one day going to come back, which it also happened in our household, that my husband had kept for somebody stamps collection that was worth so much. And this person he was, he had a lot of difficulties. And years later, he came to our house and he said, "Do you have my stamp collection?" This was years. And Charles said he did. He goes, "I know. I told him Charles would have it. You didn't sell it." So, and he was raving to everybody of the goodness that he knew he could trust. So as we begin, so is your home, or is it, you are a walking mezuzah. You not only have a mezuzah on the door, you are a walking mezuzah. The way you talk, what you put in your mouth, what you hear. We're talking about the gates of repentance at this time. Where are your gates?
Mhm.
So does the gate open or does it close? These gates sometimes are also, these teeth can be closed or open, and
Yeah.
we have to be really careful at this time,
Yeah.
especially to look at ourselves in that mirror. But be very, very careful. So we're saying, is it important to have that hospitality to let somebody or a family or or in your house, but
Kimberly
always
said
make
even a
sure,
friend.
even a friend,
Mhm.
yes, even a friend that's coming in, because it's going to change the dynamics, and you're going to see that person like you've never seen him before.
That's right.
Isn't personal testimonies the great some it is,
Mhm.
it makes you, gives you hope, doesn't it? Because all of us feel like, wow, sometimes we're thinking, do I completely trust, am I a little fearful of something? And then we trust him, or God answers our prayers, we'll go, why didn't I just he's always done it. And
Always
so
has.
we need one another to build each other up.
We were talking about friends. We mentioned friends. Kim mentioned friends, and
Hmm.
we talked about it. But you know, when we talk about shalom in the home, and we talk about being gatekeepers and walking mezuzahs, there are times, are there not, when even even our friends have to be eliminated after a
Yeah.
certain time?
Hmm.
We have to continually and diligently reassess on a
Yes.
regular basis, is this still a healthy relationship? Is this still,
Mhm.
maybe
Mhm.
we've invited somebody into our home for a season,
Yes.
and maybe that season has passed
Right.
and now it's time for them to leave.
Mhm.
Maybe
Mhm.
it's a maybe, but that doesn't mean that the season that we had them there was wrong.
Right.
We can't let the end
Mhm.
define the whole.
Right.
Our friendships were for a reason, but if that friendship has come to an end,
Mhm.
that does not mean that the friendship was for naught,
Mhm.
right?
Right.
And it teaches us our song. It teaches us, I just wrote a little thing about about our heart, about the experiences that we go through, causes us to write the letters on our hearts of God, the characteristics of God, the stories on our heart. And then out of the abundance of our heart flows the issues of life, which is our testimony,
Mhm.
right? And our testimony becomes somebody else's victory. And
Right.
I've mentioned that before. But then what happens is our testimony becomes a song that we sing,
Mhm.
and it becomes the song of hope that we
Yes.
sing to other people. Well, guess what's going to happen when you're singing a song of hope?
Mhm.
People are going to come and listen.
Mhm.
They're going to want to come into your home to say, "Hey, can I listen to your music? Can I
Mhm.
listen to the tone of that you're singing? Can I listen to what is
Mhm.
flowing out of you? Can I be part of it?"
Mhm.
And there are other people that are going to come and say, "Wait a minute. That's flowing out of you, I need to put a stop to because it makes me look bad."
Mhm.
And those are the ones that we have to
Mhm.
filter out, because we don't want that that's not feeding from our songs to not
Mm-mm.
bring peace to
Mhm.
our home. Am I right?
Yes, and Sambra was saying it's the hardest a lot of times, and I had to do this. I had to let one of my children say, "You
Yeah.
can't stay here anymore," and that is that tough love. And right now he is such a jewel to me, but for that time, and oh my gosh, as a mother, or if we have a very close friend, and we need to say, "I've got to end this right now." It's sad. It's sad because
It
we
is
want the
sad.
best, you know.
But I really want to encourage that the end should not define the whole.
No, no, no,
It should not define the whole,
no.
because there was a reason and a season for that.
Yes, yes,
And it brings
yes,
life and it brings peace and it brought a fragrance for a season.
yes.
Yeah.
Amen. So we're in this season right now of apples and spices and honey, right?
Yeah.
And
I love it.
I know hope and so is I think we're about ready to uh, stop now and then uh, do we then ask if people would
Yeah.
like? Yeah. So you want to we want to see if we have comments or
You
people
can
would
stop the
like.
recording.
Okay.